Hello, English 1101 students, and this is the class video for Wednesday, December 1st. Can you believe it that we made it to December? We are almost done with the semester. That's the exciting news. And in this video, we're going to be looking at one of the skills that is very important to learn in first year academic writing, which is how to make sure that when you are working with a source, that your quotes make sense. So that means being aware that you are adding enough background information and context from your original text source so that your essay makes sense to your reader, even if your reader isn't familiar with the source that you read. And this can be pretty tricky. It's not something that you learn automatically. It's something that takes practice. So that's what this exercise is about. It's about practicing that particular skill of providing needed context for quotes when you're working with sources. So let's take a look at that exercise. But before we do, we're just going to do a little review of the research paper assignment just to make sure that we're all clear on the deadlines and where we're at with the scheduling of those due dates. So let's go into screen sharing and look at our class. So here on our class website on Blackboard, we're going to go into content. And from there, we're going down to the Unit 3 folder. We're going to open up Unit 3. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to review the due dates for the research paper assignment. Now, we just finished the first due date, which is for the outline and the references page. The outline and the references page was due November 29th. If you have not yet submitted it, please do so. If you have not yet watched the class video for Monday's class, please watch that because that's where I go in detail about how to format the outline and references page for this assignment. So this is part of the research paper and it needs to come in before the first draft, right? So that's why it was due yesterday. So what we're going to be moving towards next is the first draft deadline. Now, the first draft of the research paper is going to be due on December 8th. So just keep that in mind. That gives us 1 week from now until when it's due. And for now, we are going to be practicing the skill of providing information that is needed for quotations, okay? So if you need to look at the research paper assignment, remember that it's right here. And all you need to do is click on it. And you should be reading it over and giving it, you know, a good examination, at least, you know, a couple of times a week to make sure that you know what's expected for this paper. It is worth a big chunk of the grade, right? It is really the second draft of your exploratory essay. So it's your exploratory essay plus one more source, and it needs to reflect that you have made revisions and corrections and that you took into account the feedback that you got on your exploratory essay from me and that you made changes, okay? So notice that that's the biggest chunk of the grading breakdown, okay? 20 points for revising, correcting, elaborating, refocusing based on instructor feedback, okay? So just keep that in mind that that's what we're focusing on from now until the end of next week when that is due, all right? So your task for the next week is to, in addition to working on this exercise that I'm about to introduce, is to make sure that you understand the feedback that I gave you on your exploratory essay. Make sure that you have corrected the things that need to be corrected. and that you have integrated your new source. So that's where we're at with the research paper. Let's scroll down and look at the exercise, the skills exercise, working with sources in Unit 3. So skills building, we're going to click on this, open it up. It's called quoting in context. So the question here is, what is the best way to use a quotation in your essay? So think of each quotation as a sandwich. The top slice of bread is the setup or the context for the quote. The middle part is the quotation itself, which is wrapped in quotation marks. And then the bottom slice of bread is the interpretation of the quote, transitioning to your main essay text. So if any part of this quote sandwich is missing, the reader will feel lost, confused, or just hungry for more information. So what I have provided for you all is 2 article excerpts. So each of these is less than a page long of text that you need to read, but they are taken from actual real published articles. And the first one is about artificial intelligence, asking the question, can AI make moral judgments? Can artificial intelligence have ethical reasoning? So here, you're going to read the 2 paragraphs, and then you're going to read an example of a student essay using that source, or an example of one quote really from a student essay using that source. Now, there is an error in the way that the student used the material. Now, I just want to emphasize the error is not with the citation. There's nothing wrong with the citations. The citations are fine. And the reason the citations are fine is because you guys pretty much have that part down. Your citations are looking pretty good right now in terms of your source introductions, including things like the author's last name, the date, all that vital information. What I'm seeing is that a lot of times the quotes are sort of hanging in the air with a lot of open questions about what does that quote really mean, because I'm not seeing enough background information from that article for that quote to make sense in your text, right? So that's what error you will find in the way this quote is written. Now, you can see that we've got a nice citation here, right? And here's the quote, right? And then underneath it, you have some questions. You need to answer and type directly into the assignment sheet using a different color or font, right? And you're going to answer question number 1, what information is missing from the quoted material? Again, it's not the citation. That's my hint, not the citation. It's information that's missing. There is context missing. There is background information about the article that's missing. What might the reader be confused about? So for this, you're going to need to use your imagination. You're going to have to read this passage, this paragraph, pretending that you didn't read the source, pretending that you didn't just read this. You have to read this and then pretend that you didn't read it. That's the active imagination I'm going to ask you guys to perform, right? If you hadn't just read that source, would this make sense? Would you understand what the student is trying to say? That's what you need to ask yourself. For question number 2, what might the reader be confused about? And now comes the fun part. Number 3, you're going to write a complete quote sandwich in the space below so that it makes sense. That means you're going to need an introduction to the quote with background information, and then the quote itself, and then an interpretation of the quote. You can keep the sentences that are working, but you need to add the missing context. So in other words, my recommendation here is simply copy, right? do a copy, and then do a paste, right? And then you're going to add the missing information, okay? That's how you're going to do that. So same thing with Article 2. You only have 2 articles here. Article 2 is about COVID-19 survivors who still can't smell or taste. So this is for an article that a student is writing about long COVID. You probably heard about long COVID, right? That's when people recover from COVID-19, but they still have symptoms that go on for months afterwards, and doctors are still trying to figure out how to treat these people. So the idea here is the same as the first one. You're just going to follow the same instructions. You're going to read the section of the article, and then you're going to read how the student used the material in the essay. And you're going to ask yourself what information is missing from the quoted material. Again, it's not the citation. That's my hint. Citation is fine. What's missing is information. What's missing is background, right? But you need to get specific about it. What specifically doesn't make sense in the quotation, okay? What might the reader be confused about? That's why number 2 is there, asking you to get specific. What specifically needs to be in there for the quote to make sense? And now you're going to answer it. You're going to copy and paste, right, from the student's work, right? You're going to copy it. You go up here, edit, copy. I'm going to go down here, edit, paste, and then you're going to add in the missing information, okay, in a different color or font. Then you're going to upload it to the prompt provided. Where is that prompt? It's right here. Upload skills building exercise unit 3 here. So this is due before midnight, Friday, December 3rd. Okay, so that's this Friday. So you have a couple of days to work on this. So the idea of this, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. The idea of the exercise, it's not just to keep you busy this week. Believe me, I don't give you exercises just to keep you busy. It's because I really have noticed that a lot of the quotes are missing background information. And it does take practice to learn how to read your essay, pretending to be the reader who didn't read your source material. And this is what happens, is that when we're working on something like a research paper that's you know, a high stakes long-term project, and we've read our sources over 15 times and we've changed our mind 5 times about which quotes to use. We know those sources really well at this point, but we have to remember that our reader doesn't. Our reader hasn't read those sources. So we have to write our essay in such a way that we provide enough background information about those sources so that our reader's not confused. So that's what we're working on. And I want to see, once we've done some practice with this practice exercise, I want to see you guys apply the same skills to your own essays so that you can add in missing context that wasn't there maybe in the first draft, okay? So that's the goal. That's what we're working on this week. And I hope you get something out of the assignment. And I will speak to you all on Monday. Have a great weekend.